What if the hardest thing you ever faced happened before you were even old enough to understand life? Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors, the podcast where we share real stories of resilience, real tools for resilience, and the hope that inspires us to keep going. Today's guest was diagnosed with testicular cancer at just 19 years old. And instead of clarity, it left him angry, numb, and questioning everything, including his faith. This episode isn't just about cancer. It's about resilience, identity, fitness, faith, and what happens when you choose to grow instead of giving up. This is Dan's story, and if you've ever been in your own shit creek, this one's for you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, very cool. Now, as you know, we share kind of moments that we found ourselves in a shit creek, which is a time where we couldn't see a way forward. We couldn't believe we got there. Sometimes, like me, I was a victim. I was like, this isn't my fault. This isn't my responsibility. But at some point, we had to make a decision to kind of do the work. So to get things going, if you would, just kind of tell us about your shit creek moment.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with testicular cancer when I was 19. So I kind of went down this path in life where I played sports my entire life. So for sports, you have to go and get a routine physical to get approved for the team. So I'm going for a routine physical. I think I was in 7th grade, so I'm about 12, 13 years old. And I go to my pediatrician and, do the whole thing. And she noticed that on one of my testicles, I had a varicocele. And I don't know if you guys know what a varicocele is or not, but it's, picture like a varicose vein, right? But
Okay.
on one of your testicles, right? So you have these veins that connect to your testicles. And on the left side, my veins were twisted. So I was like, okay, I don't know what that means. What is this? I'm 12 years old, So she's like, hey,
Right.
I want you guys to go, see a specialist, right? So we go to a specialist, and his first recommendation was, hey, let's do an ultrasound. Let's take a look and see what's going on. So we get the ultrasound. Everything looks fine. He's like, everything looks normal. He's like, I don't see anything out of the ordinary. But I've been doing this for many years. So my recommendation would be to get the varicocele fixed. So, we're like, okay, well, why do you recommend us to get it fixed? When you don't see any issues or problems or concerns. And he basically stated like, hey, if we let it prolong, potentially the veins could restrict the blood flow to the testicle, killing the testicle, and you could potentially not have children later in life, right? So naturally, right, my mother is emotional, like all moms are, and she's, I want
Yeah.
grandkids, let's get it fixed, right? And my dad's like, let's pump the brakes, like let's just look at the data, right? Let's check it out. And my dad was basically like, hey, he's like, can we just watch it? Like, why do we need to go, cut you open and have surgery? Like, why not just watch it? Can we do like routine ultrasounds and just check it out every year? He's like, yeah, we can
Okay.
totally do that. So that's what we kept doing for, every year. I kept going in for this routine ultrasound, right? Just to check, make sure the sizing and everything looked okay. And here I am, 19 years old, going in for my routine ultrasounds. I've already been doing it for, 7 years. And, we get the results back and they come back and say, hey, listen, you got a small mass on the left side of your testicle. They're like, we're not sure what it is. Sometimes there's cysts that happen. Sometimes they go away, they're benign, but come back in 3 months and let's do another ultrasound and check it out. So I come back in 3 months, and the ultrasound showed that the mass gotten a little bit bigger. So they're like, oh, let's rule it out. Let's do one more ultrasound just to make sure. So we go in for a third ultrasound, and it got even bigger. So their recommendation was, yeah, let's go in, let's do a biopsy, let's test it, let's make sure that it's not cancerous or not, right? And due to my parents' deductible at the time, we had to get it in before the year end. So I was scheduled to have surgery on December 31st, 2008, so on New Year's Eve. And me, I didn't know that having a biopsy meant removing a testicle. So
I didn't know
going,
that when you said that.
yeah. So going in, I thought they were just gonna take like a little sample and test it, right?
Right.
And so, I'm being wheeled into the surgery room. It's ice cold, it's freezing, and I remember them putting, the anesthesia on my face and count back to from 10 to 1, 10, 9, and I black out, right? I don't remember. And I wake up out of surgery, out of the anesthesia, and I remember the first thing I asked, I said, "Hey, did they take it?" Keep in mind, like my entire life, I grew up Catholic. Going through this experience, I was praying every single night, God, every single night, right? God, please don't let anything happen to me. Don't let them take anything, right? And when I got out of surgery, I said, "Hey, did they take it?" And my mom was like, "Yeah, they ended up taking it." So immediately I was filled with this rage, this anger, like, how could you do this to me, God? I prayed, and I was so frustrated, so upset. Um, yeah, it was just it was crazy experience, and
So a lot to digest for a teenager, even at 19. I mean,
yeah, yeah, and I feel
And
like
that
but
we
maybe a great conversation starter.
for sure, now in life, right, it's easier to talk about, but I feel like when you're 19, and I think society conditions men, if we talk about our struggles, it's looked on as weakness, right? And that's, I
Right.
feel like a lot of us men, that's why you need that close knit, group of guys where you can kind of vent and, share those struggles, share those hardship that you're going through. Because I feel like, as like I'm married, you're married, right? And our job as men is to provide, to protect, right? And it's, if we share those vulnerable experiences, we're going to be looked at as weak. And I know my wife would never say that, but that's just how I feel on the inside, right? Um, yeah.
Yeah, something we've
So
been either conditioned to feel, or some of it's probably how we're made as well.
right.
I'm sure there's biology to it, but acknowledging that is a big step too. So that's kudos.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so yeah. So like I immediately starting, after this experience, started doubting God, right? I was like, do you even exist? And I just kind of went down this dark path in life and became an atheist. Started drinking and partying and doing drugs, right, just to kind of mask, right, the darkness and the pain, right. And
Mhm.
after my surgery, they sent it to a pathologist to do a test on it, and it came back positive. So it did test positive for cancer. So I did have testicular cancer, stage 1. So, going to my urologist, they recommended that I go to a specialist for the next steps. So, I live in Michigan, so there was a specialist at the University of Michigan who specializes in testicular cancer, and we went to go see him, and his recommendation was to have my lymph nodes in my stomach all removed. And he's like, we gotta do this. This is the next path for testicular cancer. So I'm like freaking out. I'm like, my God, I was like, I just had surgery. I just had a testicle removed. Now I'm going to have all my lymph nodes removed. So I'm like freaking out. I'm like having like this panic attack, right? I'm just freaking out. I'm scared. Um,
Mhm.
and he's like, hey, just so you know, if we have these, lymph nodes removed, there's a very good chance you may never ever have an erection ever again. So I'm like, freaking out. I'm like, you're telling me I'm never going to have an erection ever again. I'm 19. Like, what's the point of living? Right? What's the point of life anymore? So, after I calmed down and, thank God for, second opinions. Right. So we
Mhm.
went to a second opinion, and, we shared all the results, and, blood work and ultrasounds. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I don't think that's the good. He's like, I don't think that's a viable recommendation right now. He's like, it's like, we caught it early. Your blood work is showing that there's no cancer, cells or cancer markers in your blood work. So he's like, I don't think you should have your lymph nodes removed. He's like, let's just monitor it and watch it. So that's what we did for the first 5 years. I'd have CAT scans, ultrasounds, and blood work like every 3 to 4 months for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it just became this routine thing every 5 years, and we're I don't know, I think it's probably like year 3 or year 4, and I'm at home. We're watching TV, and on the news, my hematologist oncologist is being arrested, going to jail for Medicare fraud. And this is the second opinion doctor.
Well, the second opinion doctor.
Yeah, this is the second opinion doctor. He's the one that told me not to have, my lymph nodes removed. But
right.
He got caught up.
Did he go ahead and charge your insurance that he did have it removed?
No, he didn't, because I didn't have, my family, we didn't have Medicare or Medicaid, right? So he got caught up in the money, was chasing the money, and he was deliberately diagnosing people with cancer and shooting them up with chemotherapy drugs, and I think some people that didn't even have cancer, ended up dying, right? And you can look this up. It's a known public case. Dr. Farid Fada out of Rochester, Michigan. So you can check that out. But I think he's facing like 45 years in prison.
Wow.
But his wife was able to escape and go back to their country. I think in Lebanon. So she escaped all the charges. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, she was probably keeping the books too. A lot of doctors' wives do that, especially from other countries. I have had a few experiences too. They've been positive experiences where you had a really negative experience. And by the way, what a grave reminder that every 3 months you have to go in and get tested again of that mortality scare and all those things. So
yeah,
take me into obviously you felt down and deep from that, dark from that. But when did you start coming out of that? I mean, how do you start recognizing that you're doing something wrong and you need to mentally you need to try to start getting positive?
Yeah, I started, getting back into fitness again, and started working out. I played sports my whole life, right? So I was always, you had to always work out. You got to be in shape. You got to do this, and that. And so I started getting back into working out, and then I met a girl, and we started dating. We were together for almost 6 years, so fell in love, and kind of just got out of those toxic habits of drinking and partying and drugs and all that stuff, and so just started focusing on working out and growing the relationship with her. And then I hit my next rock bottom moment in life, where I proposed. She said yes, so we're working on planning the wedding, getting married, and she pulls the rug out last minute, like, hey, it's not working out, I don't want to, I don't see this long term with us, and just crushed me, right? I just crushed. And I said, at that moment, I was like, I don't ever want to go through this crap ever again. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to party. I'm not going to do drugs. I'm going to choose the path of growth. I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to learn from it. I'm not going to play the victim card anymore. I'm not going to blame God. I'm not going to blame, my parents. I'm not going to blame anyone. I'm going to accept 100% responsibility for everything from now on. And I just went down this path of just personal growth. I just started reading books and investing into, working out more. And, then I met another girl, and, who's my wife now. And, we were at a coffee shop, just grabbing a coffee on a date, right? Just kind of connecting. And, I was sharing my story, telling her about, my whole cancer thing, and, how I wanted to start a testicular cancer foundation. And I kind of pivoted away from it because Lance Armstrong kind of had that whole doping thing, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to do that. But I was like, I'm kind of
Guilty
looking
by
for
association.
exactly right. And I was like, I'm kind of looking for that group of people, of those like-minded people where we can, share our hardships, share our struggles, and kind of motivate each other to kind of overcome those. Right. I was like, for me personally, I didn't have that group. I kind of had to do it all on my own and alone. Right. It was a lot of just alone time and working on myself. And she kind of, kickstarted, me with the business I have today, which is, Rise Above. And, she's like, why don't you just create the business? Why don't you just do it? And so I did. Right. And so that's what, I do now. Right. Rise Above Apparel. We're all about overcoming life's struggles through fitness.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah.
Is that
that's
right?
so
Like Rise
amazing.
Above is the website searchable? Like Rise Above, going to get to it?
Yeah. If you go to riseabove.org, ORG. Yeah.
Okay.
That's our website. Yeah.
Gotta get that plug in there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, you did just mention that you felt really alone during that period of time where you suddenly committed to being, I guess you would say, resilient, right? I'm not giving up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I will carry my cross. I will die while I'm carrying it. You know what I mean? And that is such a shift in view and perspective. Do you have any remembrance of that moment when you were like, you know what? In a way, F this. I'm doing my thing. Everyone get out of the way.
Yeah, 100%. I was tired of the pain. I was tired of the struggle. I was tired of the
Mm,
darkness. I was tired of this repeat habitual, toxic crap all the time. I was like, I'm done. It was literally like a
yeah.
switch. It just turned off and the new switch turned on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said that you were going to
I would
just,
say when
yeah.
your first fiance pulled the rug out from underneath you, that could have been a really good opportunity to fall back down into the dark spots. And is that right about when you went like, nope, nope, I can't do that. That was a bad way to go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? I was filled with all this, obviously hurt and pain, but I was like, you know what? That's life. Put your big boy pants on, right? Time to dig deep, time to grow from the pain and become stronger. So that's what I chose to do.
And good for
And,
you.
it-
That
and
is the shift. That is the pivot that we all have to try to strive for. The moment of maturity, spiritual maturity.
Yeah. And
it's like when you finally had enough, you're like, I'm over this. Like,
yeah,
if I die tomorrow, it won't be like this. You know what I mean? It's like for me, the switch was that big. It was like, just pissed, and if I'm this energetic and pissed, I'm going to start pushing and people are going to watch, but
that's
there's a
it.
lot of things that happen in that moment. But it is interesting that we can all kind of trace back a moment where we're like, you know what, no more, this is over, I'm not living like this anymore. And for me, it had a lot to do with being a victim. I think another thing that you just said that was super interesting is that for a long period of time you were alone, or at least it felt like you were alone in your journey and your pursuit.
Yeah.
And what I found so interesting is by doing this show, I think we're like, what, like 50, you're number 57, the episode. We hear a lot about a time, and I experienced it when you're alone. And it's almost like we call it the gap, where the people who know you, although they want the best for you, they can't make it happen. And that whatever they've done hasn't made you click into place. And we found that although it feels lonely in those times, we're starting to figure out that it's almost essential. It's almost like our own walk in the desert, if you will, where you're like, this is my travel, this is my trip. I got to focus on me, because if I focus on me, I can be there for other people. I've got to
Yeah.
become the best version of myself. And a lot of times people don't see that, who are either in your life right then and there. You almost have to like go through this gap where you find the people who you can relate to.
100%. Yeah. And
Yeah, and that's
that, yeah, I was just going to say, that's exactly what I had to do because, I had a lot of my buddies are like, come on, let's go out and party and drink and let's go have a
mhm.
good time. And I'm like, I don't want to do that crap anymore. And, and then I have other people like, hey, I want to set you up with this girl, let's set you up with this girl. And I'm like, guys, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And like, you talk to my wife now and, she always brings up this story where she would, when we started talking, she would always say like, hey Dan, let's go out to this 4th of July party. And I would be like, no, I'm gonna stay home and and read a book. I gotta focus on me. And
Yeah.
she's like, I can't believe I stuck around for you, and I'm like, because it was, she's like, what guy is just choosing to read a book over, going to a 4th of July party with me. And it all worked out, right? And she knows that I had to kind of go through that path, right? Of I had to be comfortable with who I was again, and I had to be strong, because I didn't want to repeat this crap anymore. And it ended up working out, because we're happily married now. And like I told you guys too before, right? They said I might not be able to have children, and we have 2 kids now, so it's amazing.
Good.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is such a
Congratulations.
blessing. Yeah, that is
Thank you.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like a lot, sometimes we have people on here who are talking about, like, I talk about alcohol, and I'm a full on alcoholic. I wasn't able to kind of be like, this is enough and like rewind it, it was just like an ongoing flow. So when you're in like alcohol recovery or like any other drug recovery, you usually talk about avoiding people, places, and things that would remind you of drinking. So for me, it would be my buddies who want to go out drinking. It would be bars that have alcohol in them. It would be even watching what I'm watching on TV, or careful what I'm watching on TV, so I'm not catching commercials for beer and like all that kind of stuff. And it is it is interesting that in your situation, you did the exact same thing in a commitment to personal growth and
Yeah.
becoming stronger. You're like, I don't have time for these other things because I have a vision and I'm moving in this direction,
Yeah.
which is
100%.
abnormal.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
like
everyone was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't want to go out and party with the boys? Like, you don't want to,
right.
I'm like, sorry guys, I'm staying home. I'm grinding. I'm working out. I'm reading. I'm investing in me. That's what I did. I just
Yeah,
grind it. Yeah.
that's
For you
beautiful.
though.
Invest in you.
Yeah. And keep in
You know,
mind,
you
right?
you prayed you prayed when you were 19. You were praying for, to be safe and to get to a certain spot, and it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out. And it's funny that I see that in a lot of stories as well. We pray for
Yeah.
something, or we ask for something, or we aspire for something, and then I'll just use the example that it's the number 4, and God's going to get you to number 4, but it may not be 3 plus 1 like you were planning it. It might be 4 minus 2 or minus 1. It might be 5 minus 2. There's other ways to get to the number 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%,
you just got to wait
and
out for his timing. It's going to happen.
for sure, and keep in mind, like I'm still an atheist, like going through all this. And it probably wasn't until 2020 that I started praying again and talking to God. And me and my now wife, we've had our ups and downs of marriage and relationships and kids, right? I'm sure all of you guys have had, marriage is tough, right? And we started going back to church and getting involved in the church. And this year, I got rebaptized again. So that was a big thing for me this year, so I
Yeah,
came,
that is awesome.
yeah, right. So, absolutely. Yeah. Right. So, I accepted, Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And yeah, it's been a good year.
What got
That's
you to
good.
talking to him again? Was it desperation like it was for me? Like I was at the end of my road and then I was finally like, if you're there, you better show me. And then all of a sudden he showed up in such a way that it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
How did that show up for you?
Yeah. There's been just a couple moments, me and my wife, now we had a moment where we broke up. Right. And we got back together and we both talked about it, afterwards. And we were like, I prayed and then she prayed. Like we both prayed that like, hey God, whatever's meant to be, you'll guide us. And he guided us back together. Right. And there's just been these little moments throughout, life. And, where you're kind of, like you said, you're desperate or you're kind of at those low points and you just pray. And he delivered. And, going through this whole cancer thing. And it's like, I didn't see it then because I was in this storm, right, of darkness and chaos. But now looking back at it, I had to go through the cancer, all the heartbreaks, all the setbacks to become who I am today, to lead my business, because that's our goal, is to just inspire people, who are going through similar struggles.
Isn't that amazing that our worst moments turn into like the beginning of something just that we never even envisioned? And it takes a while to get there. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you've been on this journey since 19, you know what I mean? So there's lots of emotions and ups and downs and questions and, and all that kind of stuff. And then it never makes sense when you're going through it. But when you look back, you're like, oh,
Exactly.
like I wouldn't be who I am today without being shot in the
What is it you
face.
say, Cam? You say sometimes you say it didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that becomes very empowering. It is crazy because you can look at you. You can sit across from any person and be like, I know what it's like to be in shit creek. Like I know that feeling, that depression, that heaviness, that darkness. But there was a way to rise out of it, and now you're a living example of that.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. You just gotta have faith in God, and it all works out. Yeah.
Yeah, you
It's
gotta reach
hard.
for those oars to help paddle you out of shit creek, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the oars can be anything. It can be, as long as there's a positive coping mechanism instead of the negative ones that we've been used to, with
That's right.
drinking and alcohols and drugs and food and porn. You find healthy coping mechanisms. You use those oars, and it can be religion, it can be music, it can be taking walks, it can be writing stuff, it can be working out. And
That's
on
right.
that note, talk about your business. How successful has it been? How's it been going? How long has that been going?
Yeah, so I launched the business at my 10-year cancer anniversary, which was in 2019. So we originally wanted to have everything made in Detroit, right? That kind of, this whole made in Detroit thing was trending, it was popping. But the
That's
thing with
awesome. Let's rewind. Hold on 1 second. Let's rewind 1 second. What is the business?
Yeah. So my business is Rise Above Apparel, and we're all about overcoming life's struggles through fitness. So for me, right, was cancer, and overcoming these bad breakups and mental health, depression, you name it. So we started the business in 2019, which was my 10-year cancer anniversary. So I literally launched it on December 31st, 2018. And yeah, so we tried, having everything made in Detroit, and it was very difficult because, clothing's, having it cut and sewn and made in Detroit, it's not competitive. And,
Mm-hmm.
we still tried it, and then COVID happened. So 2020 COVID happened. It literally destroyed my entire supply chain overnight, because everyone that was supporting me in Detroit said, "Hey, listen, we're making more money making, masks and, face shields and things like that. So you're on the back burner for now." So there's kind of like these two years of just kind of just existing, right? We weren't really doing much, but we're kind of, getting our name out there. And then, 2021, I started pivoting and opening the doors up to, overseas. And I did a large order, and the guy botched, my entire order, and I paid for a lot of it up front. And then he ended up dying from COVID. So I lost all my money, so you'll see, like, going through all these hardships in life, right? Business is the same way. You're constant, it's constant setback after setback. You're constantly getting punched in the face, but you just got to keep pushing forward, and you can't give up. And so that's where we're at today. We're slowly growing, slow growth every year. I don't do a ton of money into, advertising. It's kind of a lot of just organic, organic outreach right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so is it mainly like athletic apparel, and then
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, athletic wear, or, just kind of casual, loungewear, so we got like hoodies and t-shirts you can wear. But a lot of, is, leggings and biker shorts and tank tops and, men's shorts. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll get on there after this and see if I can find any Christmas presents.
There you go.
There you
um, w- so fitness was definitely like one of your major paddles, right? You're like, one of the ways I know I can get out of this is just put my nose to the grindstone and get to work, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did too. I put on about like 100 pounds after I got shot. And so at the beginning, I was like, I know if I get fit, I'll feel better, which you do 100%. But it's so hard to get the ball moving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're in, we'll say we're recording in December, but January is right around the corner. People are going to be setting new goals that are huge. And then, and then maybe not completing them. What would you suggest to people setting new goals for this new year in physical fitness?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is like you're not always going to be motivated. You're not going to always want to get up and get out of bed and go work out. You have to be disciplined when the motivation's not there, and that's the hardest. That's the hardest part. That's what separates people from succeeding and not succeeding is discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you suggest
On the
anything
head.
like breaking it into really small steps for someone like me who, if I see too many steps, I'm like, that's a mountain. I don't feel like climbing.
Yeah.
I had to start when I first got out of the hospital with after I got shot. When you're in a coma, you lose all your strength, right? Everything atrophies. So I had to learn how to walk again. And that started one driveway at a time. So the first day was from my driveway to the neighboring driveway. So that was a very small step, but I was able to complete it. Do you
Yeah.
suggest anything like that for people who are getting going, or how do you set
Yeah.
goals for newbies?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely start small. Don't try to, say I'm gonna lose, 200 pounds. You right. You want to set small goals. Find people that can hold you accountable. If you don't have someone that can hold you accountable, hire a coach, right? Hire a coach that's gonna, hey, you didn't show up today. What happened? How come you didn't come? How come you didn't come to workout? So having people that can hold you accountable is also key to succeeding.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great
Yeah.
advice.
That's probably why the podcast has gone so well, is because I've got Dennis over here holding me accountable every week, making sure I'm getting everything done on time. I don't want to look stupid in front of him. If it was up to me, I'd probably be like, I can find a little wiggle room, but
Well, I'm here to look stupid. That's my part. You're the
no,
brains
you're
behind the
not.
operation. I'm just here to say goofy things every once in a while.
You're the looks. You're
Yeah.
the looks of the operation.
There you go.
It really strikes me how young you were when you had to go through something this big. Um, that's hard to relate to if you haven't been through it. But I imagine there's people out there listening right now who are young, or when they were young, they went through something. But actually, if we're talking to a younger audience member right now who's facing something that you would never expect at that age, uh, any words of advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, don't do what I did. Don't bottle it all in. Don't go to drinking and partying and drugs, right? Find healthy outlets, talk to people that you can trust, right? Try to
Yeah.
find that core group of dudes or girls, right? Whatever.
Hmm.
That you can trust, that they're gonna have your best interest at heart. Because I was too embarrassed and be like, yeah, guys, I'm getting one of my, balls chopped off, and
Hmm.
it was hard for me to talk about with people,
Yeah.
and I felt embarrassed, and even talking to girls about it, right? So you start meeting girls
Hmm.
and dating, right? And it's like, it was embarrassing, right? But now, I crack jokes, when people talk about it. I'm like, hey, listen, some of us only got one, so take it easy, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I find
so
humor is a really good source of medicine to deal with coping mechanisms. A lot
yeah,
of first responders and military members do as well. I was actually around the restaurant industry a few years back, and we had two guys with the same names, and one of them had one testicle because he also had cancer at a younger age, and one of them was born with three. So there was always a
amazing.
joke like, "You were born with the extra one. You're supposed to give him that one," you know. But you joke about it, and you say things that are kind of crass if you really stand back and look at it. mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, you hide in
Yeah.
embarrassment and not talk
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all human. We all have struggles, so it's yeah,
Exactly.
you got to talk about it, don't hide it. It's important.
And with
Yeah.
all things, the blueprint is easier said than done, but put in the
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
you did. And, it's awesome. And I hope somebody else out there hears it and decides to pivot and put in that work.
Yeah, and two, if anyone listening, reach out. If you have questions or anything, you guys want to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to someone. I can write you an email. Please reach out.
Yeah. We'll
You
put
sell
all
workout
your
plans on your site too?
No, I don't have workout plans on the site, but one of the things that we're gonna try to implement, hopefully, in the next year, I want to start hiring coaches. So like, right, Cam, you could be a coach on alcoholism, right? You could be that coach that's
Mhm.
helping people going through that are battling addiction with drinking, right? And I could be a coach for cancer, right? And Dennis, you could be a coach for whatever, right? So I want to try to have
Veterans.
these coaches, yeah, on the site where you can book one-on-one time with them, and just get help, or we can have like just kind of group videos or group classes, something like that. I'm still kind of
Oh, very cool.
brainstorming on it, but it's, yeah.
That's a really good idea.
It is.
That is a really good idea because then you're seeking
Thank you.
someone who's been through it instead of like a counselor or a therapist. You're
Right.
actually talking to someone
Just
who's walked the path.
And it can
right.
sometimes
Yeah,
be
that's a
easier than talking to a friend because you almost feel embarrassed with a friend. We talk to a stranger who has been through it, and you're not talking to a counselor or your friend. It's kind of a middle ground there. It's kind of like peer to peer counseling.
That's right.
absolutely. That's a really good idea. Yeah, if you want me to coach on being shot in the face, I can do that. And not hitting the pause button day after day after day, but we all have our own paths. Something you mentioned earlier, and I think it's really important to talk about, is guys don't typically talk like this. You know,
Mhm.
we and I've been debating why that is. And I'm worried that the majority of us maybe aren't walking around as our authentic self. We're actually walking around as um we're trying to reflect the environment that we're in instead of being who we are. And it's a way of blending in and being safe. And I know it's part of like a survival thing inside of us, but when you live that life, it's hard to talk about what's really going on with yourself because it's not part of that package you present to the world, you know? And it's just interesting when something happens, you really find out who's got your back and who didn't really have your back.
100%. And I
And
feel like, yeah, I feel like we're afraid of being judged, right? And
mhm,
at least like most guys, like you all they want to talk about nowadays is sports or fantasy football or
mhm,
whatever, right? And deep down we all have these struggles. We're all going through problems, and it's important,
yeah,
right, to find that
I-
that core group of dudes, right?
yeah.
Yeah, but
They need
even
to
if
do
you're
like
around a
a
core group of guys that are talking about fantasy football, if you're still presenting yourself authentically,
Yeah,
you can feel some relief in those conversations too. But if you're not feeling that positivity around a group of person, maybe it's time to look for a different group and flock to something that makes you feel a little bit more positive.
100%.
But you're right. We walk around like this puppet that's just reflecting the environment we think we're in, and it's really important to be honest. I think it's 100% the reason why I've had failed marriages and relationships and friendships because I was trying to present myself as this tough alpha male guy. This, nothing ever is going to hurt me. I can deadlift this much weight, all those kind of stupid things. And no, not stupid. They're good things to have too if you use them for positivity. But I wasn't using it for positivity.
Yeah,
Um, and it wasn't until I kind of came back to trying to be better spiritually and mentally and physically that I kind of started recognizing that. And I can look back on my life now and see a lot of difference from who I was to who I am now. And then I can see it with the friendships and the relationships I make now too. But we just got to be ourselves. Just be honest with yourself and let the honesty come out. You'd be surprised how many people go through the same thing.
100%. Yeah.
It is crazy. Like we will literally act like someone else so that someone else who's our friend won't figure out who we really are because we don't want to be judged by them. Like, is that really a friend? Or or am I carrying out this friendship in the right way? You know, if I'm masking myself, not really showing you who I really am, I'm not participating either. If I just thought about that now, you know. So it's funny, you just gotta it's hard to live authentically because you're afraid you're going to be judged on who you really are. So you act like somebody else because if you're judged as somebody else, it's not really who you are. So it doesn't hurt as bad. You know, it's such a weird like mind trick.
Yeah.
That's it though.
Yeah, I know. It's the vicious cycle of life, right? I mean, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to show that vulnerability because it looks weak, right? But I think we just
Right.
gotta start reframing it. It's not weakness, right? We're all human, and we all have struggles, and we can all help uplift each other.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
let's
it's
go
it's good to
back into
learn.
your site there real quick. What's your bestseller?
Yeah, our bestseller, I have it on right now, right? So this is our new Genesis hoodie. So I
Hmm.
just got
Nice.
the new color in, which is our Arctic white. So I'll be dropping that hopefully in the next week. But we just got all new stock in of this hoodie.
That's
What's the
awesome.
emblem there? Let me see it again.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
our
phoenix.
emblem is it's a phoenix,
Okay.
Hmm.
right? So kind
Rise
of
from the
It's
kind
a
of
good
ashes. I like it.
phoenix.
So we got a lot of
yeah.
listeners that don't watch and they only listen. It is like a phoenix
Yeah,
head.
and then you'll see like another on the sleeve here. It almost looks like a slash, right? So that's symbolic for a scar, right? So we all have these
Okay.
scars in life, right? And we wear them as reminders that hey, listen, we went through these hard times, and it made us who we are today.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
I like it.
How boring will we be if we didn't go through anything, you know? It sucks that we do, and you don't learn without going through anything, you know what I mean? But it's,
I'm ready
you
for
know,
boring though.
yeah.
At this stage of my life, I'm ready for boring. I don't need any more scars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
But then you learn like you don't stop growing. Like you think when you're a kid, like when you get like 40, somehow you get like blessed and you're like, you're a full adult, you know, or you think it's like at 18, like you're a full adult, you know, you can do whatever you want. You know, you've shown you're an adult, but man, you got to keep growing because you'll run into adults who decided to not grow
Yep.
and you see them stuck where they were
Yeah.
with the same mentality and yeah.
Yeah. And my biggest motivation now is my kids, right? Because my kids are watching me. So if I'm not growing, they're not learning, they're not growing too. So I'm
Mhm.
always kind of reminded by my kids to keep pushing forward.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Now, going through what you've been through, I like to ask a couple questions.
Yeah.
What would you define resilience as?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I think resilience, just never giving up and never surrendering, just keep pushing through.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Just keep pushing. Keep pushing. Don't give up. Hold the vision for sure. What would you say to someone who is right now in that shit creek moment where they have run out of ego? They've run out of like, I've got any hope on my own. And now they're finally deciding the wrong way isn't the right way. I've decided now to start moving. What would you say to that person to kind of give them a little inspiration to start?
Yeah, I would just say that, hey, listen, I know it doesn't seem crystal clear right now, but you're going to look back 10 years from now and realize that you're making the right choices. So keep pushing forward, keep working on yourself, keep growing, keep learning, and don't stop, because you're going to look back and remember that day.
Yeah, I
There you
love it.
go.
I heard something recently, it just came to mind. I hope I get this right, but it's really funny. Like we ask, or God has a destination for us, right? And it's like a single line. But during our life, we decide to turn our car and be like, no, we should go over here. We should go over here. But what's really cool about God, he's the GPS, is he always reroutes where you're going to go to get you to that final destination.
Yeah.
And that for me, that really opened my eyes. I was like, oh, so I actually can't get totally lost. There's always going to be a reroute. There's always going to be a way. And especially for people who believe, oh no, I've screwed up and I'm never going to be able to go and do this thing or feel this way or have this or have that. And the truth is, your GPS is going to recorrect. It's going to show you how to get to where you're going. You just have to not give up, you
That's
know,
right. That's beautiful.
And if it's not the vision that you had, like Dennis said, you know, you think 4 is 2 plus 2, could be 3 plus 1, could be 5 minus 1, but it could be something way crazier than that. And you have no comprehension at the end of the day, it's going to equal 4. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But you have to trust, you have to give in, you have to submit, surrender.
That's right. And have faith, right? And
yes.
Stay positive.
Yeah, I mean it's the hardest part, right? Because like I was telling you guys before, like I was in that dark storm, right? Drinking and partying, and I couldn't see, you know, to today, right? But you got to have faith that it's all going to work out.
Yeah. I found when I was drinking at my worst, I didn't care about tomorrow. All I cared about was just not feeling the feelings that I was feeling in the moment. That's all I cared about. There's no long-term vision, very short-term vision. I think what happens also in that moment where you finally flip the switch is you get a glimpse of long-term where this will take you. And it scared me enough because I was going to die. It scared me enough where I was like, I've got to make a decision here.
Yeah.
You know, I can't sit on my hands anymore. Well, I tell you what, it has been amazing speaking with you. We are going to add all your links and bio information so anybody listening can reach out and get some of your apparel. One day when you guys are all over the place, you guys are going to sponsor us, right?
Amen.
And thank you so much, Dan, for bearing your soul and being vulnerable and talking about some things that are hard to talk about and sharing them. That's it's the strongest thing anybody can do, and I'm proud of you for doing it.
No, thanks. Conversation was great, and I had a great time. So thank you.
And if we just help each other feel better today, it's worth it. But hopefully somebody out there listening gets something out of it too.
I think one of the manliest things you can do is talk to other men this way. Is to say, I'm screwed up and I'm working on it. How about you? And the next person goes, me too, but I'm working on it. What are you doing now? You know, so like we come together.
It's erase that stigma.
We're not hiding.
Dan's story is proof that resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about refusing to let the pain define you. Vulnerability is not weakness, and asking for help is not failure. And growth is always possible no matter where you're starting from. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who's in their own shit creek right now. It could help. Subscribe to Shit Creek Survivors for real stories, real tools, real hope, because none of us are meant to do this alone.